AATBirds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need. It's all birds, all the time.
And welcome to another edition of the AATBirds Weekly Report. We got a lot to talk about. Got Tush Push drama. We got owners' meetings recap. And we're going to talk about some defensive fits in the NFL draft. We talked about the offensive fits last week. Chip's joining us this week. Not to give any draft input, but to give us his input on the other topics that we have.
I'll say positions that I think we need filled.
Listen.
And then you guys can insert the picks that you like. I don't do anything draft related. I don't do my deep research like y'all gentlemen do.
Well, I got you covered, buddy. I spent way too much time on it today.
Yeah, you'll be covered, Chip. You'll feel like we're the teachers and you're the student.
I love it because I took a baseball to the face, so I think I lost some details in my brain hole.
I think they were already gone, but that's very, very true there. But no, we're going to talk about a lot of the, if you want to say, there's the bitching, the crying, the jealousy, the pettiness. There's a lot you can kind of describe when you talk about this whole tush push, brotherly shove, sneak issues, if you want to say, because there's, I guess, 16 teams voted for it and 16 against it, because that's what the vote looks like it had come out to. And they tabled it, which means they're going to revisit it most likely. And there's been a lot going on. I know I've been talking back and forth with you, Matt, on, looking at what we have. So Adam Schefter was on radio station this morning talking about how essentially Roger Goodell and they're going to most likely ban it in some sort, in some way. And to me, the way that I think of it, and one thing that I've come to talk about it when people bring it up is, so a couple of different rules. We'll go over those next to a lot of stuff that they went over. They approved some new stuff. One of those was the kick return. So the kickoff now, if you kick it into the end zone as a touchback, does not come to the 30-yard line, now comes to the 35, because with, as they said, was lesser injuries and injury risk or percentage of injuries on kick returns, that they want more kick returns. Now,
which is the most dangerous play in football.
Yeah. You tell me how many guys have been either paralyzed, who've had serious neck injuries, serious injuries, running down that field.
Concussions, soft tissue, like even minor injuries. I mean, look at Sidney Brown. He knocked himself out like 3 times this year.
Listen, former Eagle back in the early, more like close to mid-2000s.
Jason Short?
Jason Short, exactly.
Yeah, my guy.
An absolute terror, a Brian Brayman type. Like these guys, like you can get seriously injured. For you to want to do that, plus now flexing of, the Thursday night and doing all this other stuff that they're doing, extra games. They're a triple header on Christmas because it falls on a Thursday. It was on a, the way that they're scheduling, they want to add another game. It's not about player safety. So the whole player safety angle that they're trying to do has kind of gotten smashed. So now they're bringing up other stuff, whether it's not a football looking play. It's more like a rugby. We want the aesthetics of it. And Jeffrey Lurie literally slammed that when he had his press conference talking about the aesthetics. And what about a screen pass? Screen pass doesn't look great. But to me, it's the biggest bullshit. Just because a team is very good at something, we're gonna ban it. You know what? Josh Allen's too good at throwing the ball. He has too strong of an arm. He can't throw it more than 30 yards down the field. Like where do we stop here?
Well, and if you really want to get into that conversation and the aesthetics of football and what does football play like. I posted something earlier this week. It was an illustration of the first football game ever played in 1869. And it's a scrum. I mean, football is an evolution of rugby, essentially. Yeah. So theoretically, if you really want to break this down, like the tush push or brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it, is technically closer to the origins and the roots of football than the forward pass. The forward pass was illegal at one point. Like they had to actually legalize it in the early to mid 1900s. I mean, like what are we doing?
I mean, and how many times do we hear the phrase football games are won in the trenches? So you've got a play that showcases trench-based football, and you're saying, well, it's not nearly pretty enough. We have to cancel it.
And how is the player safety any different than a goal line? I
don't want to hear the player safety example at all. Like, Johnny, you broke it down really, really well. When you look at the player safety angle, they are doing literally everything possible to make the game more monetarily successful than safe for the players. Like, there was that time where they were, oh yeah, we need to do this and we need to do this, and that's for player safety, and we're going to ban the wedge, and if we end up not having as many kickoffs, that's okay. And now it's screw that.
We want return.
We're going to fix the kickoff rules so that we get more.
Well,
I don't want to hear the player safety angle. What it comes down to is the Eagles do something really, really well. It is not okay. Fine, I'll give you it's not aesthetically pleasing, but you know what? It's to punish a team for doing something really well just because you can't stop it is absolutely absurd. And I love that, Sean McDermott's one of the leading voices on it, but it didn't stop him from running the play.
Well, I also saw something that was interesting and pretty funny, which I want to get into when we get into the owners meetings recaps on some of the rules, and it pertains to the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen and Sean McDermott and those guys, because it's a pretty funny aspect because, of course, as we know with the tush push stuff, Josh Allen failed at that against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you also look at, there's a lot of pushback. I've been seeing a lot. There's a GM, an anonymous GM, Jordan Schultz, put out how it called it soft. And he goes, we know who it is. I don't have to name names on who's, he brings it out. It's funny because it's all the Shanahan guys, McVay and all those guys are just like, I don't think I've heard Shanahan or McDaniel talk on it, but all the other guys, Raheem Morris and McVay and all these other guys saying that, oh yeah, we want to get rid of it. Oh, we want to get it's not a football play, or it's like medical experts. Yeah.
I keep hearing the posturing. That's all I hear.
But my thing too, like the medical experts saying there's a possibility. There's a possibility on every play to get hurt.
Every single play.
What about the possibility? What about when you are at the goal line or whatever, and you go and you turn to your back, hand the ball off to the running back. He goes full speed into the line. Like, that's not an injury risk. Like the nonsense of it is just because you don't want it in there. And Roger Goodell, I'm telling you right now, if Roger Goodell is the voice that gets enough owners to ban it, I wouldn't come to Philly. I'm just telling you right now, I would not step foot.
So let me ask you a question. Let's say they ban it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles line up for a standard quarterback sneak. The only difference that there's going to be is that these players aren't going to be behind Jalen. It's going to look a lot like the victory formation without someone behind them, and they're going to be on either side, and they're going to make a wedge. The offensive line is going to fire out exactly the same way. The tight ends on either side of the line are going to fire out the same exact way. Jalen's going to go the same exact way. The only difference in a standard quarterback sneak and the tush push is that someone is physically behind them, like stopping backward momentum if there is any.
Correct.
So, like, that posturing that they keep bitching about, like, has been happening since the dawn of freaking time when it comes to football. I was doing it
on 4th and 1 when they line up. Like,
Dude, my job when I played at Duquesne was part of it on goal line was to line up on the other side of the center and fire out as low as I could in a 4-point stance and create a clusterfuck. That was my job. My job was to wreak havoc and just create a pile.
Yeah.
Nothing is going to change about this play,
Nothing's going to change.
Except there's not going to be anybody behind Jalen. That's it.
And again, I want to point out that the Eagles are the Super Bowl champions, right? Like, I just feel like that has to be said. The Eagles are Super Bowl champions, and you are making a rule that directly punishes these Super Bowl champions. Or is an attempt to punish the Super Bowl champions.
I don't even think they're going to punish us, though. Like, I really don't see us being any less successful on this play, which is the funny part. Like, we still have the best offensive line in football. We still have a quarterback that can squat 600 pounds. We're just going to move the people from behind him to his side, and it's going to be the same exact play.
Like, right, and like with the Tush, are you not – okay, so I'm kind of thinking about this. So you're not allowed to push the ball carrier, but are you allowed to push the offensive lineman?
That's
what I'm saying. What specific language are they going to put into this ban? Because it's going to have to be specific language so that they can find the new loophole.
Well, so our buddy Ross Tucker had a really interesting post about that this morning, talking about how the only difference is those players are going to push to his side. They're going to put their helmets or their shoulder pads on his sides, no hands, and they're going to guide him the same way that they do, similar type of momentum, or they're going to do it to the offensive line. The league has to be very deliberate and very specific over that language about this one play, because what happens when a running back goes through the line and gets stood up by Zach Vaughn, and then someone
comes from behind and shoves the whole pile?
Right. So, like, what do you do then? Is that a 10-yard penalty? Like, where are you drawing the line as to when you can push and pull a player?
And the thing that really bothers me about this whole thing, and Johnny, you kind of already hit on it, is okay. So it was a rule it was a discussion at the owners' meetings and the rule meetings and all that stuff, and there wasn't going to be enough to get rid of it, so they table it. Like, just take your loss on the chin.
They tabled it because now Roger Goodell has to go, and of the 16 that said no, have to convince 8 of those.
Right, but what is this? Like the Senate floor? Like, this is a joke. It just
becoming
you lost the vote. You lost the vote. This should not be a political.
Take it like a man.
There's no injury data. There's nothing to drive this other than pettiness, insecurity, and quite honestly, like I said it earlier, Jim Johnson would straight up be so ashamed of McDermott.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He's probably rolling in his grave right now, calling him a little bitch. Like, I mean, I'm actually a little embarrassed.
Rather than taking on the challenge, right? Like, if I'm a defensive coordinator and I know I've got the Eagles, I am spending some time trying to come up with, because the NFL is a copycat league. So if you're the one that cracks the code, number one, your team is going to be extremely successful in that game.
Why don't they just do the same thing?
Much guaranteeing that you're going to get hired as a head coach somewhere. Why? Because you're the smart one. You're the new set of genius.
So I have something that's it's a little petty, but I think it would be hilarious is if the wind up in May or whatever they do the next vote winds up not passing. So it's going to be able to in play for the 2025 season. I want the Eagles to play the Rams week 1. And when the Eagles come out on offense, to line up in that in the first play. And then, of course, go into regular formation, but line up with that.
I love it.
That would be absolutely fantastic.
Or just do it every play up and down the field. Yeah. Just run.
You want to talk about what ugly looks like. You want to talk about a long, long game.
Like, my other thing, too, is like, that's like saying, well, you know what? The Rams run a lot of motion, and the motion, helps them get the receivers open more than other teams. I don't think that's fair. We need to stop that. Like I just think it needs to stop. Like, enough with the crying and the bitching. Learn how to stop it. Figure out how to stop it, because what that does is shows the generation, and it's a lot of younger kids in this generation. When something doesn't go your way, or you don't get what you want, or something you don't agree with, well, it needs to go away because I don't agree with that, or somebody's opinion. Like, and I'm gonna put it to you with two things. So the movies this weekend, or last weekend, I think it was. So 2 new movies came out: Snow White and Alto Knights. Robert De Niro's in Alto Knights. He plays 2 characters in Snow White. So the person who plays, the actor that plays Snow White, made comments, and people aren't going to see the movies because comments that she made. And I guess Robert De Niro, people aren't going to see the movie because comments he made. Like, people are allowed to have opinions. I don't care what people's opinions are. I'm going to watch the movie. I'm going to see it. If it's a stinker, if it's terrible, then that's what it is. But everyone's allowed to have an opinion. You don't have to agree with everybody's opinion. I don't agree with certain things Chip says. Chip doesn't agree with certain things I say. You know, Matt has different opinions. Like, we'll get to a little bit later. Matt doesn't agree with, certain jersey combinations that I like, and it's all good. And I don't agree with certain things. Like, we can disagree and it'd be okay. It doesn't have to be, well, I disagree with your opinion. You need to not have that opinion anymore. You need to get out of my life. You need to just go away. Like, just because something doesn't work for you doesn't mean it needs to go away. You have to find it out and figure it out. Like I always say to, well, I don't say it to my kids. My 3-year-old doesn't really understand this aspect, but my 9-year-old, I say, don't be a problem, or be a problem solver, not a problem creator. So you want to know how to solve the problems instead of just create new ones and create more, or get rid of something so you don't have to worry about it. Like, figure it out. That's what it comes to. That's what that's what this country's built on, is figuring it out and moving forward. It isn't just, oh, well, I need you to help me and get rid of it so it makes my life easier. That's not the way life works.
Amen, brother.
Okay.
Well,
So
that was very Cory Booker-esque. I thought you were going to go for a full filibuster, 25 hours.
I was waiting for like the national anthem, or like some sort of.
Do you yield the floor?
Yeah. So one quick point, just anybody who out there who's listening, just to clarify, at least from my perspective, I don't give a shit if they ban it.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't about like, oh no, what are we going to do without the tush push? Like, we're going to be fine. I'm not worried about it. It's more just the pettiness that's behind this. I just want to make that clear to everybody around us that may be listening or tuning in. Like, this is not like, I'm not worried about it. If they got rid of it, I'll wear it like a badge of honor, and we'll probably make some sweet shirts out of it. But like, we're not concerned about it. We're just kind of irritated by.
I'm going to take my ball and go home mentality.
Yeah, the little business. Yeah,
it's honestly ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Matt, you're exactly right. Like, we're going to be fine either which way. But the fact of, rather than figuring out a way to stop it, we're just going to complain about it until we get our way and it goes away, is a whole nother level of, I didn't think I'd see in the NFL. And it just goes to show you the no one likes us, we don't care mentality, because I guarantee you, if the Kansas City Chiefs had come up with it, it would be a staple play in the entire NFL.
It's so innovative.
Or if the Buffalo Bills winded up perfecting it, they would keep it in, just like a couple other rules here. So I want to go over
the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. If this was their play, they call it the cow plop.
Oh boy.
How long have you been holding that one in, by the way?
I just came up with it. The one I've been holding in is when Johnny said, they've gotten some pushback on this. I've been holding in going, how did he miss the opportunity to say some pushback on this?
Yeah.
It was right there, Johnny.
Yeah, I missed that one. That's okay.
You did.
So
cow plop I just came up with in answer to your question.
All right. So the one rule that we already had mentioned was the NFL ownership voting on the touchback spot. So when you kick the ball to the end zone, instead of going to the 30-yard line, it's going to go to the 35-yard line. And I guess one of the big things was the results in 24, they're saying was a success. The league saw 332 more kick returns, bumping from 21.8% return rate up to 32.8%. So there was also 59 big play returns of 40 or more yards last season. They want more of those plays, but again, some teams, you're going to have, they're going to come up with trying to, drop it down into the zone so they don't have to, make it a touchback and get it 35, try to get them somewhere before that. So you're going to have a lot of that, but there's some teams that are just say, screw it. I'm just going to kick it out of the end zone. But
I do like, I'm not going to lie, I do kind of like the kickoff rule, not because it's a better play. Like the original kickoff, I think it was amazing. But I do like it because it adds an additional layer of strategy to your team and team building philosophies. So like now you need dudes that have kick returning chops.
Yep.
Right? Like Avery Williams is brought in.
Which you made
Sirianni
a guy like Devin Hester. Devin Hester made the Hall of Fame because of return chops.
Yeah. I mean, Joshua Cribbs and Patterson, like those guys would.
I mean, Brian Mitchell, for Christ's sake.
Oh, dude, he was a stud. Anyway,
come on, you got some older guys. Like you guys can't. Come on, Eric Metcalf,
dude, Dante Hall,
Glenn Milburn.
Ew,
that's
Ryan
an old
Westbrook.
one.
Gross. Josh Huff,
Michael Bates.
Huff was the. Do you know that Josh Huff was the last player for the Eagles to score a touchdown on a kick return?
Was it Huff or was it Wendell Smallwood? I thought Smallwood scored in.
Oh, you might be right. Shit.
By the way, segue. Don't forget, Johnny is now offering an Eagles trivia routine.
Yeah.
Trivia challenge.
I mean, like I do. To get back to my point, like I really do like the kickoff rules. I like that that's back. I like the strategy behind it. I like that guys are going to make rosters because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you're also forgetting the point of yes, the returners of it all, but now you need precision kickers as well because it's the difference of 5-10 yards. Right, you can just boom it through the back of the end zone. That's great and all, but now you need guys that can place it places, and you're actually setting strategy on defending the kick return.
You
I
also
can't wait to see the punter coffin corner kick come back.
You also need a kicker. Well, potentially, you also have to think about the exposure that this creates for your kicker, right? So, like now, there used to be less of a chance that the kicker would have to get involved because it's utter chaos. Now you have to worry about your kicker getting involved in a potential scrum, which is why we saw man kicking for a good chunk of the season. So like these are things you got to think about too. Like, are we going to have more badass kickers coming in the league?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they go about that.
Like Justin Reed would be an amazing kicker for those kicks. Like he probably has a perfect range for that, and he can lay the wood as a safety valve. So I mean, like it'll be interesting to see what kind of strategy comes out of this for sure.
So the other rules that were passed and what was rejected. So we have the list here. So the league passed a proposal by the Eagles to align the postseason and regular season overtime rules, granting both teams an opportunity to possess the ball, regardless of the outcome of the first possession, which was in the postseason, but not in the regular season. But unlike the postseason, the regular season OT will remain 10 minutes instead of 15.
Which was a Josh Allen law, by the way.
Exactly, and that's where I go to my. I'm telling you, Josh Allen
rules for players.
Well, there's two of them. There's two of them, and the next one is, well, not this one. It'll be a little bit later. But NFL passed a proposal by the competition committee to expand instant replay's ability to advise the on-field official on specific objective aspects of play and/or address game administration issues when clear and obvious video evidence is present. I believe this is with picking up flags. I don't believe it's for throwing flags.
This is the replay assist rule that they released. So this is actually your 5 new penalties can now be overturned by the booth.
Yeah,
you're right.
But they can't be penalties thrown if they had missed them and didn't throw a flag. It's only flags that are thrown that are not flags.
A notable aspect of this proposal is that the replay assist will not call penalties that weren't flagged on the field.
Okay. And hey, I like that. Now, one probably face mask. I would think that would be, well, no, that'd be a missed call.
Yeah.
But again,
I would assume that this will get expanded if this is successful this
they
year.
want to see how this goes first before doing that.
Like you think of that Vikings game in the beginning of the year that they lost to the I guess it was the Lions, right? Where Darnold was clearly grabbed by the face mask in the end zone.
I thought that was the Rams Vikings. May have been that. I think there was one. I think I know what the game you're talking about, where it was a clear and obvious penalty that wasn't called. But I think they'll expand it as the years go on. But the league rejected the proposal by the Lions to eliminate automatic first downs on a penalty imposed defensive holding illegal contact. What's funny, the Lions, because that's all they do, and especially with Justin Jefferson, all they're doing is illegal contact or holding. You got to be more precise when you're playing defense and not, 3rd and 20, knowing if they're going across the middle, you don't have to hold them. You don't have to contact them. So some of that's on the players itself and coaching to make sure it's coached the right way. So I'm okay with that being rejected. I'm fine by that.
I agree. It is. I mean, it does create there are a couple times where we were bailed out by crummy penalties and ticky-tack calls. I mean, we saw a couple of them in the Super Bowl that hit on Dallas Goedert, things like that. Yeah. So, I mean.
But I think that Goddard hit was a makeup for the pass interference on AJ.
1,000%. But so, you get my point.
I get your point.
Attack. So I'm good with it. I just don't cheat.
The other proposal that was tabled was the adjusting the playoff seeding, that division winners don't automatically get home playoff games. It would go to the teams with the best record. Sorry, I don't agree with that. I understand, a team this year on the way the records were. But when you expand the games and you have more games, yes, there's opportunity where teams, have really good records. But if you win your division, you're playing your divisional opponents 6 times. Their rivalry games doesn't matter. Like, if you win your division, you deserve to get a home playoff spot.
Winning your division has to mean something.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Especially because the NFL a couple of years ago moved to have those meaningful division games at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So if winning your division doesn't mean anything, then you're looking at subs and backups for the last 2-3 weeks of the season in some cases.
Yeah.
No.
Tomlin had a really good comment on that. I don't know if you guys saw it this week, but he was mentioning that he's a divisional purist, right? It having the division on the line and having that seeding be as important as it is why these division rivalries are so incredible.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look at the Steelers and Ravens were not. I mean, the Steelers were not the greatest team this year, but those games are always absolute slobber knockers, right? That division just kicks the shit out of each other.
Oh, that's your reward for winning your division is getting home.
The AFC North literally had hard knocks about the AFC North teams.
Yeah, you need those division rivalries, and the best way to do that is to make winning your division more important.
Yep.
And it all comes down to the almighty dollar, right? You're not going to get away with taking a home game away from a division-winning team. You're talking about merchandise. You're talking about concessions. You're talking about parking. For a division-winning team that has to go on the road. No. It's not going to happen. I get it. The Lions and the Vikings, they were a great division this year. They were. I understand the logic behind it, but I think it's different. The NBA winning your division doesn't mean diddly. Winning your whatever it is that you have your rankings, but you're also talking about series, right? You play a playoff series in the NBA. This is one game. It's one game. It has to mean something to win your division.
I agree.
And then of course we had, the free agent contact. They did that. There was some of those, but the one was that came out, the uniform policy. And now that you can wear alternate uniforms up to 4 times a year. Now, the rule before was 3 times. And the Eagles, of course, they used it for 2 times Kelly Green, and then they used the all black uniforms the last 2 years. And this past year, they were able to do a different combination of the black helmets with the white and the black, as the NFL letting them for the Brazil game, which, okay.
Yes, I loved it.
I like it. I think it's great. I did, like I mentioned to you guys before we started the show, was when we take a look at what the Eagles posted to their social media, their ex posted was 9 different uniform combinations, and pick the 3 that you like. And they haven't talked about the Kelly Green or the away Kelly Green. So the white jersey. They haven't really said much on those like that, but it's the other 2 that they never really posted, especially when it comes to uniform combinations, is the black jerseys with the green pants and the all green. And I am an all green purist, if you want to call me that. I know, Matt, you said, you messaged me, goes, you're an all green guy. I don't know. I love that all green look. I don't know, just something about it. I know they haven't had the best of luck with the all green. The only thing I will say for you is I have bad memories, PTSD, if you want to call it, of the black and green pants, because that 2003 season when you lose Carlos Emmons and Brian Westbrook, it had a little bit of some bad juju there. But I do like the look. The look was pretty cool. But
I thought the throwback Kelly Green was an interesting pull there by the team. I wonder if it's foreshadowing here.
I did want to just bring this because you wanted me to share. So, of course, they had the all-black look. They wore what I said they wore in Brazil, the black helmet, white and black pants. And then, of course, you have the Kelly Green look.
Because they weren't allowed to wear green.
Well, so there's a couple layers of this rule, right? So, the big thing is that you can allow 4 times alternate. Prior to last year or the year before, I forget, it was only 2 times a year. They expanded it to 3. Now it's up to 4. So that's the big thing. The second thing in there is that now you can wear alternate pants in the postseason, which was previously not allowed, which I believe is why the Chiefs couldn't wear a certain combination in the playoffs. It's why we couldn't wear black pants in the playoffs if we wanted to. So that's a big addition there. And then the third part of this rule is that teams will now be able to wear their alternate helmets with their standard uniforms. The old rule was that you could only wear your alternate helmets with an alternate or throwback uniform. So if we wanted to wear the black helmets, we could only wear them with the black jerseys or the Kelly Green, but that would just look like shit. So
yeah.
Actually,
include the
you might be able to pull it off. I don't know. But prior to this year, you could not wear your alternate helmets with anything other than the designed alternate uniform or throwback uniform.
But also the reason the Eagles couldn't wear the green helmets with the black jerseys, correct?
No, they can. They can do that. Oh. You just can't wear your alternate helmets with whatever.
So you can't wear them black with everything. Gotcha.
Yeah. So they wore their black pants with their green helmets, for example. Yeah. But the black helmets that we saw in that Brazil game in week 1, black helmets, white jerseys, black pants. That was apparently a special concession that the NFL made because it was so sensitive around colors. I know they said it wasn't. There's a lot of hoopla about whether it was gang related or, opposing teams would have been upset, whatever it was. They allowed the Eagles to do that as an homage to the home team. So I thought that was pretty cool. But that is now something that they can do on a regular basis. The only difference is I don't know if it's clear. It's not clear to me yet, and I'll follow up once I have more information. But it's not clear to me yet if they can do that, like the black helmets with the white jerseys, black pants, and if that counts against your alternate uniforms. That's what I don't know. I think it's just uniforms in total and not the helmets, but I'll try to get clarity on that.
But yeah, that's something that is interesting to see kind of what kind of combinations they could do. So if they were to do the black pants with I know in the regular season, I think you can do it as like they wore the black pants with the white jerseys and the green helmet. So and that's why that I thought it was interesting when they posted that, because they could go all green and it not count as an alternate, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
So
right.
They could go with the the black jerseys would be considered an alternate if you went black jerseys and green pants. So that would be
every team has a closet, is what they call it. The NFL calls it a closet, and you have standard team colors, which is your standard home. In our instance, that would be the green, Kelly green, or the midnight green, white pants.
Like how the Titans changed their colors to the blue, the light blue now.
Yeah,
as their home jerseys. Now, apparently they're getting rid of. They're not going to wear the Oilers uniforms anymore. I've heard that.
I don't get that.
I think there's some back and forth between Houston and who owns that.
Well, they've worn it against Houston the last 2 years, and they've lost both times. So,
I'm really excited about this. Obviously, I'm big fan of all the alternates. So I'm really not just the Eagles, but I'd love to see the Texans rock their battle red helmets with their standard blue uniforms. There's going to be some cool
fun with it.
Yeah, college nails it. They're a lot like Oregon. Look at Oregon. Look at everyone but Penn State pretty much. It's going to bring so much more fun and flair and possibilities. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah,
that's the thing I'm most excited about after the owners meetings.
Well, now we get into the fun of part of the show. Going to talk a little defensive prospects.
Yes.
So.
Love it.
So now we're going to talk a little defensive prospect. Now, Chip, you're going to give us a position to talk about, and then we'll kind of give you some prospects and kind of go from there. Give us kind of our favorite prospects through that. I know Matt shared a number with me, and I do have some similarities there, but we can kind of just go back and forth. Now, of course, these are defensive fits. We would love to get Abdul Carter to the Eagles, but we have to think realistically. There's got to be realistic options when we look at the Philadelphia Eagles and where they draft and who could potentially be able for them to grab and get on their roster, on their team. So we got to be a little smart with that, because you could talk about the best prospects in the draft, but the Eagles are going to be nowhere near them when they come the clock. So.
Let's get right into it then. So we got to talk, since even the NFL agrees, games are won along the trenches. Give me some defensive linemen that are great prospects.
I'll let you start, Matt.
I was actually going to let you go. So why don't you kick it off, and then I'll go from there.
All righty. So when you take a look at, and now I'm going to go with a guy that is a former teammate of the Eagles' number 1 draft pick last year, and that is Darius Alexander, defensive tackle out of Toledo. I'm bringing him up. He is 6'4", 305. I'm not going to say he's a Milton Williams-esque player. He's a little bit older, so I think that's what kind of scaring some teams off a little bit with being drafted so high, because he did spend 6 years in college. So, with the COVID year and everything, he got that extra year. So,
go to school for 7 years.
Way to go, Van Wilder.
Yeah, they're called doctors. Anyway, keep going.
So, for me, he has great length. He does have a 3-down skill set. He comes off the ball quick. He's very to me, he does emulate a little bit of what kind of Moro Ojomo and Milton Williams, and he fits what Vic Fangio likes to see in his interior defensive lineman. And I just think with him being a little bit older, he's experienced. I think this will be a great option. I don't know if 32 would be smart, depending on who else is there. If somehow he slides into the 50s and the Eagles can trade up potentially for him, I would be more than happy. But I think he's a player that could definitely fit in there as a rotation to kind of gain himself some play. And I think he could definitely, work his way into that mold of being developed into a very quality interior defensive lineman.
I agree. I really like him. I put him in a mock recently. Got a lot of pushback because of his age, but I like him as a prospect. It'd be pretty cool to see Toledo go back to back too. All right, so I've got two that I really like. I won't touch on them a lot. I'll touch on the first one real quick. Riley Mills out of Notre Dame. I really like him. He's given me.
Guy. You can talk about him.
He's my guy, dude. He reminds me of Andy Harmon. Maybe because
Andy Harmon reference. Okay.
Maybe because he's white. I don't know.
Yeah, sounds about white, right?
Speaking of length, he's 6'5", 295, 8 sacks in 24, and that's even with missing the final 3 games with a knee injury. 15 sacks in 3 years from the interior. Primarily inside, can give you some outside rush versatility. Not the best run defender, which may be why he slips to the 4th or 5th round. But he does have a pretty impressive pass rush grade from PFF at 83.1. Really like him as a potential late round sleeper or mid round sleeper. But the one that's really interesting to me, and what I tried to do in this exercise, was look at who the Eagles have talked to.
Mm-hmm.
Is Elijah Roberts from SMU.
First of all, neck roll.
Yeah, neck roll, which means he's automatically a first round talent. He had a 30 visit with us, which is interesting, and they have him listed as interior defensive line, although he did play edge at SMU. He's 6'4", 285, so a little smaller. Tremendous RAS score at 8.36. 7.5 sacks, 18 sacks in 2 seasons at SMU. And a 90.7 pass rush grade with a 22.4% win rate. So really, really interesting prospect, I think. Interesting that they're looking at him as an interior defensive lineman. I think he'd be an awesome 4-eye for us in that 5-man front. So he's someone I'd keep an eye on in the 2nd, 3rd round.
So one more interior defensive lineman. I'm going to actually, there's one more guy after this that I really like. But a guy that I put in my last mock in the 2nd round for the Eagles is TJ Sanders from South Carolina. 6'4", 297. I think when you really look at him is, he's very, very violent when he's, at the point of attack. And, the one thing is, he doesn't have doesn't have the greatest first step quickness for an interior rush. But again, to me, that's not something that's, he needs to be a pass rusher, because when you have Jalen Carter next to you, basically a lot of stuff that you have to do is to be able to, stay in your gaps and not basically Hassan Reddick it and try to make something out of nothing and try to make yourself and lose all control and lose all, gap integrity.
Yeah.
So to me, I really like him. Like if you can get him in the second, the third round, if he drops into the third round, I think that would be a great get for him. And I think he's a player. He's a younger player. He only played, he redshirted his first year and he played 3 years. So like in 2023, he had 9.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 4 pass breakups. Last year in 13 games, he had 7 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. So, like the numbers are there, even though maybe the tape itself doesn't show his quickness and his get off and everything that you would want to see. But the productivity in the SEC is there, and I think he's a player again that could be a player that could in a couple of years develop into a very solid contributor for your defense.
And two things on TJ Sanders before you go to your next guy. He did have a formal meeting with the Eagles at the Combine, so they obviously have interest.
Yeah.
And tremendous RAS score, which is we all know something how he looks at 8.55 for someone that big, and 90.3 true pass rush set grade. And I know you said he wasn't great in the run, but he did grade out as a 77 by PFF in run defense. So, like, he's got, for a younger guy, I think he's a ball of clay that Fangio could turn into something deadly.
Well, it's always good. You need that ball of clay for him to mold.
Yep.
Because he's done that too on a number of guys. My last interior defensive lineman, let me pull him up here. So is Jordan Phillips from Maryland. 6'3", 320. For me,
he plays pretty good. He plays pretty fast too. He doesn't play.
Yes.
He doesn't look like he plays at 323.
No, he doesn't play. It doesn't look at all like he plays like that. Now, some places list him at like 312. But for me is like looking at all his measurables, looking at everything when you take a look at this guy. And he was in the offseason Senior Bowl. And I think he was in the Senior Bowl. Maybe it was the Senior Bowl East-West. I can't remember which one. But he was really, throwing offensive linemen aside, he was looking the part. And I think he could be a definite mid-round talent that could develop for you. So he's another player I really like. And again, maybe a little overshadowed because Maryland wasn't the best of schools. But again, you can find talent anywhere.
Well, and I think you also want to keep in mind that Jordan Davis is due a potential 5th-year option. I don't know if they're going to pick that up. I don't think they're going to give him a second contract. And if they do, it's got to be team friendly, considering they have to pay his partner Jalen Carter. So I wouldn't be surprised if they look for a backup nose, which we've been screaming for 2 years.
And that's kind of why that was the first spot that I even thought to bring up. I mean, we know that at this point Milton Williams is a big loss, and he got paid very accordingly. So we got to start rebuilding along the trenches. I mean, and with Brandon Graham retiring and Josh Sweat going out, like there are holes along the defensive line right now. So for me, I do feel like that is our current priority. So I'm glad you guys came.
Well, I think the defense in general is going to be the priority. I tend
to agree.
That's probably a no shit statement, but like, I think it's going to be a very defensive heavy draft and UDFA class.
Yeah, I would agree there. But I think, as you laid it out, Chip, I think now we have to kind of go into the edge rushers. We talked about the interior, but there is edge rushers where you mentioned Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat, losing those guys. And
it's a big deal.
You did sign a couple guys in free agency, but you still need to develop that room and have a rotation, have guys that are going to be here more than 1 year and guys that you can develop alongside a Nolan Smith and a Jalex Hunt. So that's definitely one. I'll turn it over to you, Matt, for your first edge rusher.
Well, there's so many good ones. This is a really good year to need defensive line, which is how we obviously looked at this and made his offseason plan accordingly. Number one for me is DE Donovan Ezraku out of Boston College. Already has a 30 visit with the Eagles, so there's There's a like there from the Eagles. 6'3", 248. Awesome athleticism, 8.28 RAS score. Did not run the 40, but his shuttle and 3-cone were elite. 16 and a half sacks, 80 total tackles, 20 tackles for a loss, and 3 forced fumbles in 24 alone. So, like, the dude's productive. The dude's fast. He has 215 tackles as an edge rusher in his career.
It's pretty good. I mean, let's call it like it is.
Yeah. So, like, the guy is ridiculously productive. I would be shocked. A lot of people have him mocked to us at 32. I'd be shocked if he lasts that long. But I think he'd be an ideal fit for that overhang defender in a Vic Fangio defense. I think he has the athleticism to drop into coverage. He has 4 pass defensed in his career. So he obviously drops into coverage, gets his hand on the ball a good amount. And he had a 90.7 pass rush grade in 24 and an 83.6 run grade. So even though he's on the smaller side, a la Nolan Smith, I think he's a little bit more prepared for run fits in the NFL than maybe a Nolan Smith was when he first came out. So really, really interested in DE or as a Raku. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, some of these names can be tough. So the guy that I'm going for here is Olu Oladejo from UCLA.
You really challenged yourself there.
I did. 6'3", 250. The only thing with him is, like, to me, there may be a little bit of some bumps that he has to kind of develop himself. And again, with signing, veterans like Ojulari and Uche and having Jalen Hunt and Nolan Smith, like, it's okay to kind of bring him along like you kind of did Jalen Hunt. But the talent there, the raw talent that he has, like, it's there and you can see it. And I believe the Eagles, I don't know did they have a visit with him or?
Yes, he had a 30 visit with us this week. Yep.
I thought he did, but like, when you look at the measurables, all the measurables are there. To me, I just think when you take a look at, like, what he does is he brings that savviness, as diagnosing those run schemes, kind of like how Nolan Smith developed himself into a really good against the run. I feel like Oladejo can do that as well. He can get himself into those positions. And again, when you play for Vic Fangio, he wants you to do that. That's the reason Bryce Huff didn't get on the field. And another reason he was also inactive on Super Bowl Sunday and most likely won't be here when you take the field in 2025. So I think Oladejo is a guy that, maybe second, third round. Again, I don't know how much he's going to rise, but I think that may be the range for him. And again, I would be okay with that. We know the Eagles need some depth at the edge rusher position. So to me, I would be totally happy. And with him being on a 30 visit with the Eagles, they like him because they do usually draft players that they've had on visits.
Yeah. And a couple interesting things about Oladejo after digging in on him. Not terrific production, only 9 sacks in 3 years. But as you said, that skill set is there. His frame and his body is there. Interestingly, he also took more reps in his career at stack linebacker than he did at edge.
Interesting.
So he has 954 reps at off-ball linebacker and 661 at the edge. So just something to keep in the back of your mind when looking at him and thinking of his fit with the Eagles. I think there's a reason for that. I think Vic likes that versatility, similar to what you have in a Zach Bond. He's obviously he's a little heavier than Zach Bond, but I wonder if they don't look at him as kind of a chess piece there. I thought he was an interesting prospect.
And I think that, having a guy like Fangio who is committed to being our guy, I mean, it's whatever he wants. I mean, he is a proven winner. It's whatever he wants, and
Yeah,
I think that that's really important to keep saying here.
he wants guys that play it his way for sure. There are two more guys at the edge. I won't get too heavy into them because I know we're running on time, but two guys that are really interesting there. Ashton Gillott from Louisville, 6'3", 275, off the charts athleticism. If you haven't watched him, anyone out there that wants to just watch a violent and fun highlight tape, throw on his highlights, man. He plays with a sense of urgency, a ton of violence in his hands, relentless effort on every single play. He is slowly becoming one of my favorites. I don't know how he fits here. He seems like a faster Brandon Graham or a young Brandon Graham. Really, really interesting to me.
I have a Brandon Graham comparison. Now I just want to see if you name him next.
Well, the last one I have here is Kyle Kennard from South Carolina.
Okay. Not that one. I got one quick then, but go ahead.
Met him at his pro day, unreal athleticism, 8.28 RAS score, 6'4", 255. Had 11 and a half sacks last year, 16 tackles for a loss, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. And interestingly enough, he won the Nagurski Award for most outstanding defensive player, which you can also find names like Will Anderson, Chase Young, Josh Allen.
Abdul Carter was robbed. Sorry.
Aaron Donald.
Abdul Carter was robbed.
What's that?
Abdul Carter was robbed of some postseason awards that Kyle Kennard won. But
but he's also 1 year in as an edge rusher, so that's probably to be expected. So really, really like him. He's got some awesome grades from PFF, which isn't end all be all, but I think he's a guy that you could get in the second or third round if you go maybe beef in the first round. So I'd keep an eye on him.
So the last one I have. So what we're going to do is I want to give this last one, and then next show we're going to go over the linebackers and secondary because there's a lot to talk about with that. Instead of it, because with the tush push and everything, all the owners meetings, all that stuff made the show go a little long.
We went crazy long today. It was like a regular season show.
It was like a blast from the past show. Let me see here. So the guy that I have is from Central Arkansas, David Walker.
Ooh, like that.
6'1", 263. He's got that power. Like, to me, like it's given that Brandon Graham. Yeah, he's not as tall, but he has that power, and he has the productivity. When you look at what he did at Central Arkansas, yeah, I know it's not a top tier program, but 22, 23, and 24. So in 22, he was a finalist for the Buck Buchanan Award, which is the top FCS defender. He had 22 tackles for loss, 12 sacks in 11 games. And 2023, he was 18 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, and he had a school record 6.5 tackles for loss against Tarleton State, 11 games again started. And then last year, he had 23 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks, four forced fumbles, and he played in 12 games with 11 starts and 6 pass breakups. So he is ultra productive because in 21, when he played for Southern Arkansas, he had 19.5 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. So he is so productive. When you look at what he's been like, he's got that compact frame, piled up the tackles for loss, but the one thing for me that kind of brings me to the Brandon Graham aspect is his bull rush and the way he uses his strength and his force. And, he has some quickness to maneuver himself inside. I know the competition is maybe not as great as, of course, other teams. If you're playing in Division I football, I get that, but sorry,
he's dominating at that level. If you're looking at lower level, you got to see dominance, and he shows it for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a player that I like a lot, and I would be pretty happy to see him on the Eagles.
Three things about him. One, there is interest. We did meet him at his pro day, so the interest is there. Second thing, he reminds me. You'll probably remember this guy from last year. He reminds me of Jalen Green from JMU.
Yeah.
A guy that he had ridiculous productivity, but blew out everything in his knee. Still haven't seen him make a comeback. He reminds me a lot of him. Small school, elite production at that level. Third thing is they do kick him inside a lot. Like a Brandon Graham in that NASCAR package. So I really like David Walker. And by the way, if you haven't seen Central Arkansas's uniforms, check them out. They've got some sweet unis.
Can't go wrong with some aesthetics there. But I think we're going to end the show here just because going to get to linebackers and defensive backs next week. We can make a show out of that because there's a lot to talk about. And when you look at the Eagles and, what they have to do and, with those positions, they surely add some talent there. So definitely some prospects to talk about with those positions, linebackers and defensive backs. So I do want to get in to that next week. But I'm going to leave you here. We have to do a trivia question just because, we have to do it. So we're going to do a trivia question. And it's going to be pretty easy, okay? And if you don't get this, then, we'll have to talk about your fandom card and take it back.
Damn.
It's no pressure, like, at all, right?
Yeah. Zero. David Akers. The answer is David Akers.
Who is Andy Harmon?
No. From 1999 to 2009, Donovan McNabb was the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, their franchise quarterback.
Correct.
Yes. True. Yeah.
That's not
we did it, Chip. We did it.
Card intact.
You have to tell me the quarterbacks from that time period other than McNabb that started games.
Corey Detmer.
There's
Jeff
one.
Garcia.
AJ Feely.
AJ Feely. Don't forget 99.
We have to name all of them.
Yeah, they're pretty easy.
Doug Peterson.
Kevin Cobb.
Michael Vick.
Wait, no. Michael Vick did not start.
No, Vick was after.
Does it have to be a starter? You just said other quarterbacks.
Yeah, people that started
a game.
Oh, Nick Foles.
No, Nick Foles. He came in 2012.
Foles was after.
99 to 09. It's only in the time period McNabb.
09.
So either McNabb was hurt or
Vince Young.
Yeah, McNabb was hurt.
Vince Young was 2010.
The dream team.
Was Mike McMahon in there?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. So McMahon, Peterson, Coy Detmer, AJ Feely, Jeff Garcia.
How many are there and how many are we missing?
You are missing, I believe you're missing. Actually, no, you got it because Jeff Blake didn't start. He came in.
Oh, yeah.
Because I forgot.
Card intact, Matt. Card intact.
We did it.
It's not very hard. It's pretty easy.
That's what she said.
I don't know. That's not that. Yeah.
You know why we're so good at it? Because we're such a quarterback factory.
You know what? You're an idiot. Yeah. And Tim Hasselbeck played 2 games, but he didn't start. Throw that in there too. 2002.
It's a gross list of quarterbacks, and Mike McMahon made me never want to be an Eagles fan again.
Well, that was awful.
He might be the worst quarterback I've ever seen in my life. And if you're watching, Mike,
friend of the show,
come on the show and let's talk about it. About how shit you were.
He ruined my Christmas Eve. 2000.
He ruined everybody's Christmas
even
Eve.
though they were already out of playoff contention, still ruined it.
He ruined everybody's Christmas Eve.
That was terrible.
No. The Grinch.
Even Santa was like, "Dude, this sucks."
What about the
threw snowballs at him?
They ruined 2005. Remember, that's when the Reggie White retirement jersey, the jersey retirement. They lost 41 to nothing, 42 to nothing. The Sunday night game. Was it Sunday night or Monday night? It was Sunday night.
It was hell on earth.
It's pretty bad.
He's
But-
terrible.
Yeah. With that, again, great job on getting those correctly. You don't have to hand in your fandom cards.
I wasn't gonna anyway.
Yeah,
Tell
well,
him. Yeah,
I know where you live. I would come and get it from you.
that's
But
fair.
with that, as we always say, we always end it with 2 words.
Mike McMahon.
Go
Go
Birds.
Birds.
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, aka Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.